Hey guys, welcome back. In this video we are looking at a classic, Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses, which has one of the most famous rock riffs ever in the intro, which we're going to cover first. One thing I want to say is if you want to match the recording, the studio recording, you have to tune down a half step. I'm not tuned down a half step. And there is also a standard tuning version available on YouTube to play along with, so if you want to avoid going a half step down and a half step back up for other stuff. Okay, so for the intro, if you want something to visualize, everything's really just moving around D major chord, but of course up here an octave higher at the 14th and 15th frets. Now if I rearrange my fingers to hold that D chord and then free my index finger up, this is kind of like bar chord, if you will. It's not really a bar chord, but kind of fits in that category. So this is what the whole intro riff is going to be moving around for the most part. Yes, there are a couple other notes in there, but it's just this little arpeggio that's moving around a D chord. And so what you want to pay attention to is the first note is the only thing that's changing. It's going to start with string 4, fret 12, and then a sequence of notes. And then string 4, fret 14, and the same sequence of notes. And then string 3, fret 12, and the same sequence of notes, and then back to string 4, fret 12, and that would be a full cycle. So in the beginning, it goes through it 3 times, really 2.5 times, and then there's a variation to end the lick. So that pattern is going to be, so like I said, we're starting out string 4, fret 12, and then string 2, fret 15, string 3, fret 14, string 3, fret 12, string 1, fret 15, string 3, fret 14, string 1, fret 14, and string 3, fret 14. So the fingers I'm using there, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, 2. So there are other fingerings that are possible here, and you should experiment with what works for you. I initially played around with using, incorporating my 4th finger, my pinky, but it seemed to just create a little bit too much choppiness from note to note. So I just used fingers 1, 2, and 3. That allowed me to get the line a little bit more smooth. But you might find that the pinky works better for you. There are a couple options out there. Now, as far as pick directions, I would strongly recommend doing this. I'm sure you can find, people doing it at least 1 or 2 other options, but I'll fill you in on what I'm doing, and it feels the smoothest once you work it out. It may not be intuitive immediately, depending on what your experience is, but this is what I find allows me to just move in and out of the strings pretty effortlessly. So those pick directions would be down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up, down, up, down. So basically alternate picking, but we're changing where the down and up are going to land based off of going down, down on the first 2 notes. And that allows me to move on the outside of strings 3 and 1 when I've got that happening, going up on string 1 and down on string 3, because if I'm doing the opposite, down on string 1 and up on 3, it's just going to be really funky. So being able to move on the outside boundary of the strings, I think is going to feel very natural. Okay, so the whole sequence, I'll get to the end here of the intro in a second, but for every iteration of starting that sequence on a different note, the picking pattern is going to be the same. So starting on string 4, fret 12, fingers a little bit more than I would if I was playing it at speed, but just hopefully getting you guys to see, you know, where I'm at, and just repeating the same pattern over and over, just with a different starting pitch. So you play that once, you repeat it all over again. For the third time through, we're starting out the exact same way. Changes. I'm going to anchor my second finger on string 3 fret 14 and finger 1 on string 1 fret 12, and it's going to sound like this. So this string 3 fret 14 is a constant, and it's just alternating with other notes on strings 1 and 2. So the order of the notes that it's alternating with: string 1 fret 12, string 2 fret 15, string 1 fret 12, string 1 fret 14, string 1 fret 15, string 1 fret 14, string 1 fret 12, and string 2 fret 15. And that's where it ends. So again, that last time through would sound like this without stopping. And the picking directions on that is up on string 1, down on string 3, or up on string 2, down on string 3. Always down on string 3, up on everything else. Like I said before, staying on the outside of the strings. All right, so that brings us to the verse. Verse is going to be the most simple part. We have a D major chord, a C add 9 chord, and a G5 chord. That's it. One of the most standard progressions or movements from chord to chord on the guitar. So you don't have to get too fancy with the strumming here like I was doing in the beginning. Just, you know, play around with what feels right to you. You could kind of mimic what I was doing, which was just crazy, and you can hear that rhythm throughout the song, that bump, 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 and then you could throw some other little strums in there. In the beginning, I think I was doing something like the order is D major, C add 9, G, D, D, C add 9, G, D, D, C add 9, G, D. Each time it loops, it's those 4 chords: D, then C add 9, then G, then D. Repeat. All right, so for the interlude, instead of calling out all the string numbers and fret numbers and whatnot, I'm just going to give you guys a close-up of my hand and the guitar neck. Might make comments about a couple fingerings, but just have you guys be able to visually follow along, and I think that'll be a lot easier in the long run. All right, here we go. Okay, so just to give you guys a frame of reference, I've got finger 3 on string 3 fret 14, finger 1 on string 3 fret 12. We're going to be moving around this area quite a bit. 14, 12, 11, or 14, 12, 14 on 4 there. And then of course we're gonna beginning on string 2 and transitioning a little bit higher in that the last little interlude riff. All right, here we go. So that last note I grabbed was string 4, fret 14, with a full step bend there. One more time. So when I transition up to 15, I do a bend and a pull off from 3 to 1 there. Then I'm going to jump up with my middle finger so I can get 15 with my third finger here. And then finger 2 on string 4, fret 14. Okay, the second one. That's all the same. Now I'm going to use finger 2 here. Bend on 11. Reach up to 15. So I'm holding that bend. Okay, all the way through. Okay, that's the second one. Third one is probably the most difficult, so take your time with it. Watch my fingers. Anytime I have to jump up to fret 15 here, I'm going to use finger 2 on fret 14 of string 3. Okay, so if I'm staying on string 3, I'm using 1 and 3, but if I'm transitioning up here, I'm going to use finger 2 for that third string to get into 15 there. All right, last one. So a little bit more to unpackage there. I'll play that again and kind of talk over it. So it starts off the same. And then here immediately we're going to jump up with finger 2 with a bend. I've got fingers 1 and 2 bending there. Grab 15 on 2 with finger 3. 13. Slide into 17. Pick that again. Slide down to 15. Slide down to 13. Finger 2 on string 2, fret 12, bend. And then finger 1 on string 3, fret 12. Finger roll to string 4, fret 12. Then fingers 1 and 3 here for a bend and pull off. That's on 14 and 12. Jump up with 2. Bend on 14. 15. Bend. 17. And then 17 on 1 with the pinky there. All the way through that. And you can see I'm taking that shape of fingers 1 and 3, both being on the string, bending, and then moving my whole hand in that exact same arrangement to get to 17. Okay? So if you haven't done things like this before, take your time with it. It's too easy to get caught up in trying to replicate the riff that you have fun listening to and you're going to have fun playing it. But just be careful about the technical side of things, and you'll be rewarded much sooner. You'll reach that goal that you want much quicker. That's pretty much it, guys. Before we wrap up, just want to walk you through the 2 chord progressions for the guitar solos, so you have something to play while those are going. You might see some variations in the way people play these, and maybe using open position, major, minor chords, or major, minor bar chords. We're going to stick with power chords here. I think with distortion, they sound great, fills out the sound plenty. So the first guitar solo is going to be E5, C5, B5, and A5. And it's just those 4 chords over and over again. And here you can approach it the same way we did the verse chord progression, where we kind of were doing something like, and then you can throw in some other strums there, however you see fit, right? As long as it's grooving with the song. And then for solo 2, it's very similar. You'll hear Slash's guitar break, where he's just running up and down the guitar in a scalar manner. That's where the chord progression is going to change to E5, G5, A5, and then here the pattern is a little bit more specific. It's going to be C5 and D5 like this, and then back to G. C, 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 D, G. So that whole thing. That's it, guys, and then there'll be a little breakdown that follows that, and you can just play with a little less activity in terms of strumming. You could throw a little palm mute on, just experiment with it. That's it. Have fun with it, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a message. I'll be happy to answer. See you in the next video. Thanks.